The American dream. It's a phrase that means a lot to a lot of people. What does it mean to you, Will?
The American dream is like you work hard, you apply yourself, and you can make all of your dreams come true. You work hard, you apply yourself, and you could get up out of that nightmare. There's people that have come from, Poland in the past, Ireland in the past, Iran in the past, Armenia in the past, and even currently, and they were refugees of like war-torn countries, and they come to America, and they tell that tall tale of like, my dad came to America with nothing. And you see those people and you're like, wow, how are you living like that? That's the American dream. But then there's people that are living in war-torn countries, like in ghettos in America, and it's hard for them to escape that. The way those, immigrants have come to America, and they're awesome. The folks that have contributed and built businesses. But the same doesn't apply for folks in the inner city. For some reason, there's like a force field that keeps folks from the inner cities achieving that same American dream that many, immigrants have reached. We've lost the compass on the American dream. And then there's so many people fighting for that American dream, like Stacey Abrams, like the American dream right there. But then what just happened right now in the Capitol building, that's like the opposite of the American dream. And not to take away their passion, because they obviously have something they're passionate about, but that's just the wrong way to go about handling your home, right? Like, we're Americans, we're supposed to like come together and find that bridge. So we're all right. Everyone, black, white, brown, rich, poor. I don't understand how they can do that to our home. So I was trying to figure out like a way to see it from that perspective. I just can't see like your capital, like the pinnacle of what America stands for, outside looking in and inside looking in. That's just a bad symbol. Optimism, progress, and togetherness is the mindset we need to have.
I was talking to this with a friend of mine just before we spoke, and I was saying, technology plays a significant role in this. Social media, whether it was intended to or not, has created an environment where misinformation can be spread really easily. And for people who aren't actually, who don't know the difference between what is correct and what is false, it's just a matter of context then. It's just a matter of opinion. Well, I believe that to be true. And I wonder kind of what has been happening in recent memory, not just in America, but all over the world, the way that the political landscape, the socioeconomic landscape, borders are changing, Brexit. Information is at the core of all of that. Information in the hands of people who, I don't know whether they're qualified to spread it.
Unregulated platforms, when you spread information, could be detrimental to the stability of society.
Yeah.
And if you have a platform that is truly a publication, but not regulated like publications, then we have what we have right now. So the technology is magnificent. The freedom and the liberty and how it connects us is awesome, but unregulated, where I not only can understand you and all your trigger points, but I could send you designer information to inflame your emotions, to send you amok.
Yeah.
And like be at odds with your neighbor.
So all it takes is for these platforms or whatever, people to use these platforms to plant that thought in someone's mind. And an emotion is never far away, right?
And right now, that's not regulated.
Yeah.
Right now, technology has moved faster than, governance.
Yeah. Yes.
And now the internet and social media is now dictating how media is supposed to behave. Now, false truths, fake news, that's now the norm. And that is detrimental. And that's why you need to like educate folks in inner cities, and not even just inner cities, everywhere, especially inner cities, just the construct of the platform that we all trust.
Before we talk about how you're helping others tell their story It's important, I think, for the people out there that know you as an entertainer and a performer, an entrepreneur, and as a futurist. What was the key moment for you that put you on your path, because it wasn't going to be easy for you either?
My mom, really. My mom sent me to an awesome school, an hour and a half outside of the ghetto that I was raised in, the projects in Boyle Heights. And I went to a science magnet school ever since I was 7, first grade. And I attended, an awesome school where a kid gets $8,000 to $10,000 a year for their education. And receiving that type of education and seeing what like success is, and being around families where their parents like have careers. Because when you're in the ghetto, you don't know what poor is because everyone else is poor. And you really can't compare it. But then when you get around wealthy, not rich, when you get around wealth, you see the difference and the conditions of education, the classroom, the attention from teacher to student, the activities and programs. And it's night and day when you see kids and their educational environment in Brentwood and Palisades versus East LA and Boyle Heights. It's two totally different worlds.
And what was Boyle Heights like when you were growing up?
Boyle Heights was, growing up in the 80s, crack, PCP, police brutality. You know that the kids were on a path to something. You just couldn't really identify it in the 80s the way you can see it clearly now. The prison industrial complex, you didn't really understand that in the 80s. And now we see that. We see that trap that we were put in where, there's a liquor store, check cashing place, bad food everywhere. And right next to those shopping malls, those little poison centers in our blocks, there's that elementary school or junior high school or high school. And those teachers are not getting paid to the level that really equals opportunity and a better path towards excellence. So I made it like a life goal to provide a pathway for kids.
That's the key word, is pathway. You stepping into a space like this and investing in this, you figured out the only way you were going to change the system that's keeping people from achieving things was to actually inspire generationally, right? To get in there and to get kids inspired so that they would go out there and do the same thing and come back and inspire and create a new cycle and a new system.
Yeah, the system really is business. People don't realize that the ghetto is a business. To keep people sick is a business for the pharmaceutical industry. And that's a very dangerous thing to say, but it's factual. Nutrition is everything. But if you would ask a doctor right now, like how to fight high blood pressure, diabetes, and high cholesterol, they're going to give you a pill. They're not going to say like eat better. And if you live in the neighborhood that's riddled with like bad food, how do you eat better?
Yeah.
So nutritional education is super important, and we don't have that in the hood. And because we don't have that in the hood, that is a business. Kids that are not funded with a good, proper education are more likely to end up in prison systems. That's a business too. And it's unfortunate that there's some very, very like wicked parts of capitalism that are just like inhumane. And the way you compete with that is to just change the business. And what if these kids were not, on the pathway to a prison, but on a pathway to college? Not a pathway to college to have, a diploma in debt, but a pathway to fill jobs that are unfilled and create jobs that we can't imagine right now. How do you get a kid from the hood to be in the position to create jobs that we can't imagine right now? That means you got to teach these kids skill sets: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. You got to give them these skill sets right now. It's super important. That's what we should be like fighting for. That should be the American dream for us to compete.
You really are very fascinated by what's coming next. And you're unafraid to look, even if it scares you. That's one of the things I really admire about you, is we've had conversations that scare me, but your eyes are wide and you're all in. When did that click for you? Because to inspire others with I Am Angel, you got to be inspired yourself. When did you become a futurist? When did you realize that like it was more than just entertainment? Or did that happen even as a kid? Were you always fascinated by what you didn't understand as a kid?
I think it's just my curiosity, my passion to want to create. My mom is a super creative, and we would do arts and craft, paper mache, and she really truly encouraged us. And to the point where one day I said a wild dream, like, one day, Mom, I want to buy you a house. And me and my mom were talking about this a couple of days ago. I was like, Mom, do you realize that you've now lived in the house that I bought you longer than I lived in the projects? And I bought her the house when I turned 24. It took 4 years of me leaving the projects to then buy my mom a house and move her out of the projects. And I remember she was like, Willie, how much is rent? I'm like, rent? There's no rent, Mom. She was like, what do you mean? Well, how are you paying for this? You pay for it all? I was like, no, Mom, it's a mortgage. She's like, well, how much is the mortgage? I was like, $5,000 a month. She was like, $5,000 a month? How are you going to pay that? I was like, Mom, don't worry about it. I'm going to figure it out. She was like, well, you know how much rent was in the projects? I was like, no. She's like, $75. And it moved up to $150. Still to this day, it's $150. How are you going to afford that? And financial literacy is not, like, that's why that check cashing is in the neighborhood, because we're not taught to save. We're taught to get money, cash a check, spend money, and there's a liquor store for you to spend your money on right next to the check cashing place. That combination is a deadly cocktail. And the one thing that I think was wrong with that project was the investment for education, right? That there wasn't the equal awesome education where kids from the project aim to go to Yale, aim to go to Harvard and Stanford and MIT. That's not what you're thinking about and dreaming about in the projects.
Yeah.
Education is the core to all of our problems. And that's the reason why I wanted to equip kids from my neighborhood and other neighborhoods that reflect that with tomorrow's skill sets. So we should be transforming our neighborhoods ourselves, folks from the community. We need to be policing our communities ourselves, folks from the community. And it all starts with education.
So what have you learned as far as education goes in the first 10 years, before we talk about your commitment to the next 10 years in this song and this video and, the donation, the pledge that you've made around American Dream? We're going to pivot into that in a second. Let's find out what you've learned, how you've educated yourself through this process of committing and investing in these futures in the last 10 years.
What I learned was I started off with 65 kids. I remember sitting down with Lorraine Powell Jobs because I watched this documentary called Waiting for Superman. And it was about the worst schools in America and how America is failing in education. And one of the schools that they highlighted was a school that my mom went to, Roosevelt High School. So when I asked Lorraine, can I take your program to my neighborhood? She was like, well, we're just in the Bay Area. I was like, let's figure out a way to please, because my neighborhood could use that program. So she was like, well, if you're serious about this, well, this is like a $10 million commitment and 10 years at the least. Because once you start with a kid, you have to see that kid all the way through high school and through college.
It's an investment on every level.
So if you're in, this is what the commitment is. This is not like, this is how you feel this year and who knows how you feel next year, because it's not fair to the kids. So I was like, let's do it. And at that time, when I started the program in 2008, I didn't have money like that to commit to $10 million in 10 years of my life. That was a scary moment. That was scarier than my mom saying, how are you going to pay for this mortgage? But because I realized that I could go up the mountain with the family on my back and do it, that one didn't scare me. I just let's do it. Let's go.
Let's talk about this song. And the ground shifts beneath our feet so fast, Will, that when you made American Dream, you couldn't have possibly imagined that it would mean something today that it meant when you first recorded it.
It's heartbreaking, It truly is heartbreaking. And what I was thinking when I wrote the lyrics, they be talking equality, but they don't mean it for people like me. They say opportunity, but I don't see none in my streets. statistically, I'll be in a penitentiary. So I'm gonna get on that college track and go to an Ivy League. Like, I was just thinking about like progress and contribution to society. And if I was 16 years old, 15 years old, and music wasn't the path, what would I be reaching for? Like, there's a lot of kids that maybe they don't want to do music. Maybe they don't want to play sports. And they love technology, they love gaming, but they don't have anybody that looks like them. So let me go down this college track path. Let me apply myself in these sciences. I was thinking about that, the simple like method to contribute. And then I see, people storming the Capitol. And then I'm like, wow, now when I say the American dream, and there's an American nightmare happening right now, how are people going to take that sentiment? Because everyone's sensitive, everyone's emotions are on edge. I hope they see the beauty in togetherness.
Yeah.
I hope they see the beauty in open-mindedness. I hope people see the beauty of tolerance. I hope they see the beauty of collaboration. I hope they see the beauty of fusion, like black and brown. Like, if you see, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to look at that and be like, really, will.i.am? Like, I see your school has a lot of Mexicans in it. That's my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And before I can move to somebody else's neighborhood, no matter what the nationality is, I got to take care of my neighborhood. And now that I've done that for 10 years, now I want to go to other neighborhoods. And this program, the I Am Angel Foundation, we keep kids off the streets. We keep kids off the block, and we give them a path. We got kids going to Brown and Dartmouth, like freaking off Georgetown. I got a kid going to Georgetown for poli-sci, computer science at Brown, Stanford. We have kids that are on their way to be professionals, and we all need to contribute that way. I've taken care of my neighborhood for 10 years. I'm going to continue to do that for another 10 years. And I'm going to go to other communities now. And when we say the American dream, if we all could chip in and do that and take care of neighbors, whether they look like you or not, whether they think how you think, that's an open mind, that's tolerance, and we need to collaborate better. And what I saw at the Capitol, that was not collaboration. That was frustration. That was like misinformation. That was hate. That was like, what? Imagine if that was like a foreign nation coming into America. Americans did that to America. Like, what? How did we get here? Imagine that was me and my students. What would have happened to us? Like I said, the majority of our students are Latin and Black, but we're not storming the Capitol building. We're storming building capital, starting with capital of information and like purpose and dedication and discipline. And we all need that. We need a lot of that. So I got to do my best, especially in these 10 years, to create paths for these kids. I just know how much change I can do in the neighborhood I come from and neighborhoods that reflect that.
I applaud you for what you're doing with I Am Angel continually, and what you've done with the song to generate attention and to create a moment so as to draw attention to it. And I'm so glad we had a conversation that hopefully has done just that.
Yeah, I just also want to point out, like, the kids at my program, they're not just learning technology. There's awesome kids that are going to school for political science, for environmental science. We have awesome kids that are going to school for like criminal justice. We have so many different curriculums for the kids to aim their steps towards, and mentors to guide them towards excellence. And the teachers are awesome. The mentors are great. The support is awesome, and I'm really proud of, more importantly, of the kids. I started off with 65 kids, like I said, and now we serve about 1,200 kids with a waiting list, and we want to serve more. And now that it's a proven success, it's time for this next 10 years to take it to more areas that need it. And that's the reason why raising more money is so that we could duplicate it and spread it across America.
Yeah, it's a hit. And to quote somebody who we both really admire, what do you do when you have a hit?
Yeah, you follow it up and you tour.
Well, how can people get involved and help? I want to finish. I want to give people a chance to invest themselves in this in any capacity, even if it's just seeking more information. Where do people go?
GoFundMe.com/IamAngel. 100% of our kids graduate to go off to 4-year colleges. We have an IAM scholarship. We have an IAM robotics program in partnership with First Robotics. We provide safe passage for kids towards excellence and contributing to society. So if you can help me and my mission and all of our partners like Lorraine Powell Jobs, Ron Conway, thank you for all your support, Mark Benioff, whatever you could donate, $1, $5, $1,000, $10,000, whatever you could contribute to get to our goal so we can help kids for the next 10 years, it will be highly appreciated.